Hi, I'm Dr. Mike, and this is NFGeeks. Well, today is Thursday, and on the NFGeeks Facebook forum, it's Theme Thursday, where I pick a theme and encourage others to make a video based on that theme. And this week's theme is going to be cartoons, and that's what this video is going to be about, cartoons and relating it to type. Now, the reason why I did that is because the past couple of weeks I've been picking some very heavy topics, very serious, very heavy topics. The last one I think was war. I've been picking some serious things, to kind of make serious discussion about type and how type relates to these very, serious issues. But I wanted to take a turn, kind of go lighthearted. Yesterday was the anniversary of 9/11. And so, I didn't want to start going in a worse direction, make it a downer for everybody, picking, today's theme is 9/11, and I don't know what's next week going to be, the Holocaust, and just make it worse and worse. So I figured this would be a good time to kind of, do something a little more fun, a little more lighthearted. And what's more fun and lighthearted than cartoons, talk about cartoons. So this video is going to be about cartoons, but it's really going to be about a common theme that I talk about a lot with NF Geeks, and that is really how your type comes through during childhood. Again, I always say if you want to know if you've been typed right, is that you should be able to see yourself as that type as a kid. Before you even knew anything about this, before you were pondering anything, you couldn't help, being the way you were because you didn't have any other kind of ways of thinking about it. And, if you could see your type through that, then you are the right type. So what I want to talk about is kind of talk about how my NFness sort of came out regarding cartoons, in my childhood. Because I was NFing all over the place, as a kid. So that's really what today's about, for me, So cartoons, but also really more about how I was an NF even then, watching cartoons and having an NF experience and, interpreting things as an NF, that's what I really want to talk about. So the cartoon I've chosen is actually my favorite cartoon from my childhood ever, above all else, and it's a cartoon that I was obsessed with. Okay, it was my whole world for a couple of years, from like 10 years old to like 13, all through junior high school. It was like my entire universe. This cartoon, and the cartoon that I'm putting all this, this exaltation into, is a cartoon called Star Blazers. Okay, it started in the late 70s, like 79, and it's on the air till like maybe 1982, maybe 83 tops. But Star Blazers, and you can see this on YouTube, by the way. If you want to see what I'm talking about, just put in Star Blazers on YouTube. You can watch all the episodes. They're all there. Now, Star Blazers was a cartoon that was an anime, and that was then given an English, American English production. But it's an anime known as Space Battleship Yamato, which was made about mid 70s, and so it's a couple of seasons of TV series. It's a TV series with a couple of seasons, and then there's movies connected to it. I only saw the first two seasons. That's the only one that were produced in America in English with American actors. So that's what I saw. Later in life, I saw these other movies and things. But when I'm talking about Star Blazers, I'm talking about the first two seasons. That's all that's all that existed in America in the early '80s. So, but it's based on the Japanese cartoon Space Battleship Yamato. Okay, and one of the funny things about this, even outside of type, is that I get to be a proto hipster and say I was into anime before it was cool. And I really was. I really, really was. Because nobody knew about this cartoon. I mean, where I lived. I mean, other people in America knew about it because I've, heard about it and interacted with them. But where I live, I was the only one who knew about this cartoon. And that's the funny thing I always think about with the hipsters and, that funny phrase, I was into whatever before it was cool. When you really are into something before it was cool, it's not fun. There's nothing fun about it. There really isn't, because I would talk about Star Blazers and most people didn't know what I was talking about at all. Like I was crazy. And the few kids that did hated it. Okay, they were like, "Oh, that show with this flying battleship, that's stupid." So I was really all alone. And even now, I'm still alone because I see, I'll say to Noah, I was like, "No, I was into anime before anybody," and he's like, "I don't care. That cartoon sucked." It's really archaic in its drawing. It's not like today. It's not as animated the way today's cartoons are animated from Japan. So even today, I get no props for this, and that's okay. I can live with that. All right, so let me tell you about Star Blazers. So Star Blazers is a story about the space battleship Yamato. It's not called the Yamato; it's called the Argo in the American version. And each episode of the first season, anyway, started with a prologue. Okay, that I knew from memory, and I kind of know it from memory now, so I'll try to say it. So explaining the whole show. So each episode had this same prologue that that explained what the whole point of the whole thing was. And so it goes something like this. In the year 2199, the Earth was under severe attack from the mysterious planet Gamelon. Gamelon planet bombs covered the Earth with radioactive pollution, and as a result, in 1 year's time, the Earth will become unlivable. However, there is a machine on the planet Iskandar that can remove the radioactive pollution. Queen Starsha offers it to the people of Earth. A team of Star Blazers called the Star Force undertake the perilous journey. But can the Star Force travel 148,000 light years and back in just one Earth year? Obviously, they can, and do. But that was the beginning of every episode of the first season. And the second season is about the Comet Empire, which is even more intense, than the first one. So a lot of my reactions to the cartoon, and I love this thing. I could not stop watching it. Okay, it was fantastic. And again, what really sucked is that this is even before everybody had, videotapes and things like that. So I couldn't even record it, to have it and watch it later. You know what I mean? I just had to wait for it to come on, and when it was on, and that was that. I just had to watch it. So, and also there weren't any toys. Like now you could just get a ton of toys. You could find Star Blazers toys, just order them online and you get a ton of them. But there wasn't even any toys, because it was kind of obscure. So I remember me and my friend who was also into it, we would build the ships out of Legos, okay, and build the Argo and build all these space battleships and things like that. So all right, so let me talk about my reaction to the cartoon and a couple of things. The first one is that in the first season, when they're trying to get to Iskandar to get the machine to save Earth, okay, they have a year to do it, to travel this huge distance. At the end of every episode, they gave a countdown as to how many days the Earth had left. Okay, so they would do this episode, and when the narrator would come on and say, "Hurry, Star Force! There is only 225 days left before the end of all life." And every episode had this countdown, and between episodes it wasn't like the next day, like 225 to 224. It'd be like from 225 to 203, and there'd be like a week in between, showing the changes in time. And this gave me such an anxiety attack as a kid, especially the first time through. I was like biting my fingernails. I was so seriously almost traumatized from it, because like I'm 11, I don't know what's gonna happen, but I'm like, are they gonna make it? Are they gonna make it? My gosh, they're gonna make it, right? And it would get closer and closer, and it'd be like, no, they only have what's the math? I mean, what's that? Like 3 months? They only got 3 months. I would totally be losing it. And the funny thing is about, being emotional and connecting to things emotionally. After I saw the first 2 seasons and it started to replay, start over again, and I'd start with the Iskandar, quest and everything. It would still, make me crazy. It would still have this anxiety over the time, because it was always at the end of the episode, and the voice was always very dire. It was never, the narrator was not like, "Good job, Star Force, you can make it," because there's still so and so many days left. It was always, in 200 days, the Earth will die if the Star Force don't, it was always this, a lot of this gravity. It was miserable, as a child. And that leads to the second thing, and this was very mind-blowing. Now it's not, because this happens in a lot of cartoons and anime, certainly. But this never happened in cartoons in America in the early 80s. And that is, people died in this cartoon. Okay, they died and did not come back. Okay, I mean, they literally died. It's not like maybe they kind of died or they're just missing it. No, straight up died. People straight up died in Star Blazers. Okay, and this was insanely traumatic. I mean, today I really appreciate it because it was like a real story, and how and it really makes me realize how stupid other cartoons were that I was watching, like the Super Friends or whatever. No one ever died in the Super Friends, but it's funny because I remember this very specifically, is that at the end of the first season, the captain of the Argo, Captain Avatar, dies. Okay, on camera, no less. He dies. He had radiation sickness, and he was, because of the planet bombs or whatever, and so he was slowly dying the whole voyage, and that's why the protagonist, Wildstar, had to, sort of take over command of the ship and whatever. But he was still on the ship, but sick all the time. And in the very last episode, when they finally reach Earth, they're approaching Earth, from space, and the captain can see the Earth through his window. He dies. He's looking at a picture of his son, and he just sort of drops it, and he dies. Okay. Now, to show you how naive I was at that time, and again, this is because American cartoons, I didn't realize he died. Even though I'm watching it on the screen, I didn't think he died. I just thought like he passed out or went to sleep. I really did. No one ever died in cartoons before. Why would I think he died? I didn't realize he died until like the next episode where they started the second season, okay? Where it's a year later after they've, came back and fixed the Earth, and the members of the team, the Star Force team, gonna have a little party, and they all meet at Captain Avatar's grave. So it starts off, and they're at this giant grave, and it's a statue of the captain. It's obviously like a grave site, and it blew my mind. I was so like distraught. I was like, oh, he died. I mean, I remember that's exactly what I said out loud to the TV. Okay, just like I'm doing it now to the camera. I went, he died. Oh my God! Like I just couldn't handle it. I was so blown away. It was really something. And then later in that same season, this other captain, Captain Gideon, he dies. Okay, and he was a real cool guy, captain of this really awesome space battleship, the Andromeda, and he dies. The Comet Empire, which is the main antagonist of that season, kills him, and destroys his ship. He crashes, and they all die. And this was again mind blowing. Even though I saw Captain Avatar die, I didn't expect to see another person die. I mean, it was pretty mind blowing that happened. But now the thing that really hit me the most, that you can imagine being an NF and an ENFP, was the romantic side of this show, which really touched me, and like was some of my favorite parts of the show. Then it was at 12. It was some of my favorite parts of the show, and that doesn't mean I didn't like the other things I did. But of course I did. The space battles and all that. I love a good space battle. But the relationship stuff always hit me really hard, and one of them is one. So there's two main ones that really hit me hard. This is a short one. One is that the protagonist's brother, so Wildstar's older brother, thought to be lost in a battle, ends up being on the planet that they're going to get the machine with Queen Starsha. Now apparently this planet, everyone's dead except Queen Starsha, and now Wildstar's older brother, because he was rescued and now he's on that planet. But everyone else died from whatever. Okay, and so she's sort of been nursing him back to health, okay, and they've sort of been living together, and so it's time to leave. The Wildstar and Captain Avatar and the ship, they got the machine that they need to go get rid of the pollution, and Wildstar's brother's all dressed up in his uniform, being in the Space Navy or whatever, and Starsha can't go, she's got to stay on the planet, it's her planet. She's the last person on it, and she's the leader, so she stays, and she runs away crying, and they're about to take off or leave or whatever, and it's so intense because I'm watching this and I'm thinking, dude, don't leave her. You can't leave her. Oh my God, what's gonna happen? And he turns to, like, I don't know, to his, to Wildstar or whatever, and he says, I'm sorry, and he runs, he leaves, and he decides to stay on the planet with her, and he doesn't care about Earth or whatever. I mean, not in a bad way, but he realizes that he loves her, and he's gonna stay with her on the planet, just gonna be them, and he's not gonna go back to Earth, And I remember thinking how wonderful that was. I was like, oh yes, exactly, thank God, that he did that. And again, I'm 12. I'm like 12 years old watching this, and I'm thinking, oh, thank God he wasn't going to leave her. How could he leave Starsha? What's wrong with him? But he didn't leave her, and that's great. Now, the best part of this sort of romantically is that there's basically a romance that goes through the whole two seasons between two crew members. One is the protagonist, Wildstar, and the other is this young woman, Nova, in Japanese is Yuki. But Nova was like the first anime pinup girl. You know, there's lots of anime girls now that people think are attractive, whatever, you know, young men or whatever. Nova, I think, was the first one. I don't know if there was one before Nova in America, anyway. And by today's standards, she's not that pretty, but no other cartoon girl or woman looked like her, so it was pretty amazing. And, you know, if you're a kid, you know, watching it. And so they sort of have this relationship grow throughout the first season, you know, and that you want. I remember I wanted it to happen. I was like, wow, Wildstar, go rescue her, you know, whatever is going on, you got to save her, you got to get her, make sure, you know, talk to her, whatever. I was always like into it. And at the end of the first season, the ship is almost destroyed because the Gamelons board the ship, try to destroy the machine, and Nova sort of saves the day by turning on the machine and thwarting them, but she falls off or something and lands on the floor, and I don't know, goes into a coma, gets into a concussion, goes into a coma, and Wildstar loses his mind. Okay, loses his mind, and I did too. Okay, I was like, oh no, is Nova gonna die? You know, is that, you know, again, I didn't realize Captain Avatar was gonna die, but I was like, oh, what's gonna happen? You know, and I was really feeling for Wildstar because he was sort of like, he's flipping out. He was totally flipping out. Okay, about this, and it became really sad because he thought she was going to die, and at one point he picks her up out of the sick bay, and he carries her to the bridge of the ship and puts her in a chair, and they're all just watching him, the whole crew. Puts him in a chair and he started talking to her in the, you know, while she's in a coma, and showing her that Earth is just outside the window and all that. And then she wakes up, and it was this beautiful moment because he's so happy, and they're sort of dancing, and you know, and you realize that they're a couple and that they love each other, and that's really awesome, you know. Now the funny thing is, I saw this scene recently on YouTube, not recently, like a day ago, but you know, it's the invention of YouTube, and and so they show the scene of Wildstar carrying Nova up to the bridge, and it seems creepy. It doesn't seem like good romantic. I mean, you take this person's in a coma, you're walking around with her, you know what I mean? You bring her into the bridge. I mean, it's so inappropriate. It's kind of weird, you know, not cool that he did that. But it was kind of nice. And then in the second season, they have like a bunch of moments where they're obviously, you know, in a relationship, and there's this really, you know, where, you know, several times where they're sort of like with each other, and you know, sort of showing that they love each other. And there's one important scene where Wildstar has been shot by one of the main antagonists, Deathlock, and she's sort of protecting him, and like she could either shoot Deathlock or sort of like, you know, help her boyfriend and hug him and love him, and she decides to love him and not kill, you know, take revenge on Deathlock, and it's very beautiful. Again, I loved it. I was thought, oh my god, that's great. I didn't know what she was gonna do, you know. I mean, people die in this cartoon, obviously. I don't know what's gonna happen, but I was really loving it. I was like, oh yeah, see, she loves him. And then in the very last episode, when all sorts of havoc is breaking loose, you know, Wildstar asks Nova to marry him, and I can't say that was the biggest moment for me in the whole show. It's so funny. I didn't expect it. I think, you know, whatever. And he asks her to marry him, and she says, you know, yes, whatever. And I went, yes, yes, yeah, all right. I was so happy that their relationship had finally, you know, met that level where they could get married, and so it was just amazing to me. So now I look back on it and I realized that all my reactions are NF reactions. And not to say I didn't like the other stuff. You know, again, space battles and space fighters, and you know, and you know, bad aliens trying to kill everybody. You know, hey, I love all that stuff too. But this really touched me. I mean, that's the stuff that kind of really gave me anxiety. You know, I didn't get anxiety. You know, I didn't get anxiety when they were trying to board the, you know, the Comet Empire main flying city. You know, it didn't. You know, I figured they'd be fine. There'd be war. There'd be battle. They'd shoot things. You know, but those things really, you know, really touched me. You know, one last thing about the show, and I don't know if this is true, and maybe other Star Blazers fans can say this, but the main antagonist for both, or at least for the first season, and then partially for the second season, is the Gamelon leader, Deathlock. And he comes across as gay, you know, like he's a homosexual guy. I think maybe that's just because the actor who did the voice seemed gay, or maybe he was gay, but he sort of seems like the first gay villain, which is kind of comical, you know, and unique in a way. I don't know if that was intended, but he comes across that way. All right, so that's it. That's my cartoon, Star Blazers, and you know, talk about how cartoons have affected you and your type, either today. You know, it doesn't have to be something from your childhood. You know, it can be at any point in time. You know, I'll leave one thing like this. I'll leave this, you know, because this is more about my adult years. But it is my opinion, and you may not have this opinion, but it's my opinion that if you don't like SpongeBob, there's just something wrong with you. Like you hate life or something. you know, you know, you're just a hater of all things good. If you don't like SpongeBob, there's just something really inherently wrong with that. So, all right, that's it. So make your videos, and I can't wait to see them.